Broadcasting live from a swing and a miss. This is Pop Culture Reference, your one-stop reference for all things pop culture. I'm one of your hosts, Seamus Connolly.
And I'm the real Agent Argylle, Garrett Strother.
I thought you were going to say, I'm a completely CGI Garrett Strother, or something to that effect.
Put me in a little bubble backpack and carry me around with you, Seamus.
The strongest little bubble backpack to ever exist, apparently.
Well, we will get more into that on our main segment, Argylle. First, we do have a couple of pieces of news, starting off with the frankly kind of devastating news that the incomparable, legendary Carl Weathers has passed away at age 76. He is such a great, versatile presence through so much different media. He could do comedy, he could do drama. Obviously, he's best known for one of the best characters ever, Apollo Creed. I don't think that's controversial to say.
No, he is incredible as Apollo, and of course as Dylan in Predator. I think that he, in a movie full of like jacked weirdos, he shines so bright in that movie as well.
I saw somebody point this out, and I never thought about it from this angle before, that really, in a lot of ways, Dylan is this same kind of company man, corporate presence that Burke is in Aliens, but Carl Weathers is just so jacked and charming that you do not hate him the same way.
I'm not gonna lie, I was watching Predator this morning, Garrett, and he has this moment in that movie where he like does the big reveal about like what their mission actually is, and I don't know how to explain it. It's like he has tears in his eyes for his best friend Arnold Schwarzenegger, who he has had to betray. It's like such a genuinely moving snippet of this movie that they throw in there, because everyone else is just like screaming and sweating, and it's not that Carl Weathers doesn't also scream and sweat in that movie, but he's so much gravitas in his performance as this agent guy. It's wonderful.
He's, I think, best known to people now for his role on The Mandalorian as Greef Karga, which he also directed multiple episodes of, and even in those later seasons that we don't like so much, I think the episodes that he directs stylistically are at least standouts, which is saying something, I think, and I enjoy that character very much. I think even through season 3, which I really didn't like, he is a standout that I'm still like, yeah, Greef Karga, I like when he shows up.
Totally. Big fan of him on there. I do a Greef Karga impression more than a Carl Weathers impression, I feel. He's got great lines. His voice is so incredible in that one as well. I mentioned... God, there's so many things. I'm so sorry we're still going on Carl Weathers.
No, why are you sorry? No, this is perfect. This is exactly the celebration of him that he deserves.
Yes. I rec-centered the indie game The Artful Escape a couple months ago to you, and he is one of the stars of that as well. Probably some of the latest role that I've seen him in as Lightman in The Artful Escape, which I don't know if you ever checked that out, but he's damn good in it.
I will someday. And maybe that'll move up on the list now. I also have to mention, I love him so dearly as Combat Carl from the Toy Story universe. I think he's so funny as that character, and brings a real self-aware, tongue-in-cheek charm to it, very similar to kind of what he's doing on another outstanding performance, Arrested Development.
If you weren't going to mention it, I was. Carl Weathers as Carl Weathers in Arrested Development. One of probably my favorite, like, running gag side characters that isn't one of the, like, main Bluth family. Absolutely incredible. And I quote his "baby, you got a stew going" line probably once a week at the very least since I was, like, 10 years old and I watched those blockbuster DVDs of Arrested Development.
Really not somebody I had even considered the possibility of passing away. Honestly,
we saw him so, recently and so often in The Mandalorian. I can only imagine they're going to do a very sweet send-off, since he's been he's been part of the Mandalorian verse since episode 1, you
Yeah.
know? He's a major character. I hope they make a statue of him out there somewhere.
Yeah, he is the reason we call it Mando Bros. He's the originator of Mando.
Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. The High Magistrate himself. But our second piece of news here, Hideo Kojima, absolutely famed video game auteur, has announced that he is working on a third original IP for Sony Interactive right now. It was a very big... I was personally incredibly surprised that he's onto a third project already that is being called Physint, P-H-Y-S-I-N-T. Don't know what it means. He has only said that it's going to be in the action espionage genre and that it will come out in 2 years as a culmination of his 40 years in the video gaming industry. He also mentioned that it was going to be a weird mixed media bridge in the gap between film and video games. I'm not really sure what that means, but if there's anybody to do some weird stuff like that, I trust him over anybody else in that field.
Well, that's the thing about Kojima, is when I think Western game companies are like, we're going to make this game like a movie, it either goes the like Until Dawn or Uncharted or something route, where it's much it's basically a big cutscene is the movie element of that. And Kojima, despite the fact that, I mean, obviously Metal Gear Solid 4 has like an 8-hour cutscene or whatever.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Not that he isn't interested in long cutscenes, but I think to him, he is so obsessed with making video games movies, but in a very cerebral way, not in a literal, like, oh, it's the you play Uncharted 4 and you're like, this is just like playing a Mission Impossible movie. And he is so engaged with the cinematic elements of storytelling that are expanded into what is still truly a video game most of the time, with the things like Metal Gear and Death Stranding.
Yeah, and that's why, with him being more forthright with the idea of whatever he means by bridging that gap between those two media elements, I am sure it's going to be absolutely panned in America and probably loved for all time in Japan. I have a feeling it might be something more towards the Quantum Break angle of things. Do you remember that game?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he would consider doing more of like a regularly updated, hey, you have to watch this animated TV show before you play the next level of this video game. I'm truly not sure, but I do love that he has that patented Kojima smugness when he is like looking into camera, saying he's making a brand new IP for the action espionage genre, as if he didn't invent that genre and perfect it. Right in the wake of Konami remaking his magnum opus, Snake Eater, which is supposed to come out this year somehow. I think it's fabulous that he is just like, he knows what he's doing. He is the voice of God of that type of video game, and I think he's gonna be right back where he belongs.
Absolutely, it's pretty wild stuff. But with whatever Kojima stuff is on the horizon, Seamus, do you think you want to move in to our main segment this week?
Let's do it. I think we've got plenty to talk about.
For today's main segment, we're covering the new movie Argylle, from the twisted mind of Matthew Vaughn.
From the twisted mind of Matthew Vaughn. I feel like this was the least twisted, and twisted is also, I'm using that pretty lightly with the other Matthew Vaughn movies, but I was expecting a little bit more out of Argylle, I will say. I think I was maybe hoping for a little bit of redemption from the last few Marv titles that I didn't really love, I still think that there was a lot of fun elements to this, and I have a lot of problems otherwise with kind of how the pacing of this movie felt and how I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say that it was like really baby stepping us through stuff, like expecting us not to put every single quote unquote twist together the second they try to lay it out there for you early on. But maybe that's what some people need nowadays in a goofy action movie like this. But I feel like we were really rolling our eyes a lot with each other, kind of just like 10 steps ahead of the movie while it expected us to be like 3 steps behind.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought this movie was stupid, and its action sequences, there's no action sequence that is fully enjoyable. All of them have something where I'm like, man, I really wish this stupid part of this action sequence weren't in it. It is really no better than the trailer that we have been watching for the last 7 months. And all that being said, I think this movie's better than most people are giving it credit for, to be entirely honest. I didn't hate it.
Yeah, sure. I think I would throw this on. I would throw this on again. It's fun enough. I think, like you said, for every enjoyable element of this movie, there's a piece of it that isn't quite there for me. That's not to say we didn't laugh out loud at a couple key moments, or...
Well, there were definitely points where you and I were laughing at the movie and not with the movie.
Sure, yes. I think there was more moments like that than there were of us actually, like, being in there with it, with the characters. But it was corny, and it was fun enough. It was very bright and colorful, as they are wont to do with this kind of brand of action movie. But the cat was distractingly animated, and the mystery of everything didn't really click with me in the way... When we watched mystery things like the Hercule Poirot movies a couple months ago, and we were like, oh, well, they kind of laid out a mystery that doesn't even matter by the time you get to the answer for said mystery.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of felt like the exact opposite of that, where they were laying out like 1,000 clues to a mystery that, even in the theater, I think we agreed that they could have revealed in the first act of the movie, and it would have moved everything along in a less annoying way than they did.
Yes, it's trying too hard to be smart, and I think if it had focused more of its energy on being interesting, that would have improved the movie a lot. This is going to be a weird 1-2 punch. I think this movie probably should have been rated R because I thought that the bloodless, toothless action was more of a chore than it was actually fun to watch. Not that I need my violence to be super disturbing, but I do think that this was just things happening on screen.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, you were comparing it to Matthew Vaughn's last 3 films have been Kingsman movies. And it has been nice for, almost a decade. There's not been a Matthew Vaughn movie where I don't leave the theater feeling weird about some element of its problematic violence. That was a refresher. There's no church scene in this movie, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I can stand with you there. It's that double-edged sword, you don't feel as icky about the violence as you do in some of the previous work, but then, like you're saying, I was more distracted with the lack of blood and the lack of viscera. They're like tossing grenades at each other in this, They're doing very, very brutal, head crunchy, neck snappy kind of things, and it feels not like anything is actually happening at all, The action sequences, like you said, they turn into more of a examination of what's going on, of like, why are they doing it like this? Why is this so distracting? I'm more taken out of the action when it's the way that they edit it and they stage it like they do in this movie than anything else. I had high hopes for those action sequences, if I'm being honest, but they are very disjointed feeling, to say the least.
And I sent you this, I think, after we saw the movie, that he claims that this movie was really inspired by 70s and 80s action sequences, and that is just not true. You and I talked about this during The Beekeeper, where a lot of movies say that they're inspired by old school action sequences, but then you watch the movie and you're like, if that were true, there would be that anywhere on screen. I'll say that there were a few moments where he did have, he would have one action beat or one camera move where that was almost like Spielbergian, and I was like, wait, Matthew Vaughn, where is this in the rest of the action? Why is this entire movie seemingly shot on a green screen, and then there will be one shot where I'm like, whoa, that was cool, and you clearly built a set for that to be cool, and then, yeah, I just don't, I wanted to like this movie more than I did. That being said, I think the reason that I am a little bit forgiving of it is I was really charmed by almost every performance in this movie. Specifically Sam Rockwell, who has been Hollywood's most undersung, like, hardest working, comedic relief, super charming action boy, not even action boy, just number one boy for so long, who has an Academy Award but still doesn't have the career he deserves. He's phenomenal in this. We were talking again during The Beekeeper about actors who get to come in and do like a weirdo performance, and he's totally doing that in this.
Yeah, definitely. If anything that the trailer promised us is true, it's Sam Rockwell was going to be very funny and charming and fast and an interesting character to get to follow around for a while, even though for most of the time, at least, I think you also said this, that it should have maybe just been the Sam Rockwell spy movie in the end of the day, because everything else seems to be distracting from the fun that we were having with him on screen doing fun, wacky spy shenanigans.
Yeah. Because Bryce Dallas Howard is not an actor I really have any affinity for. I don't dislike her. Kind of like her directing. I think she's usually just kind of competent, and she shows up in something and I'm like, sure, Bryce Dallas Howard, you go ahead and do it. And she's doing things in this that I've never seen her do before, which I enjoyed, but I did not think that, especially when she's sharing most of her screen time with Rockwell, who's giving such a good performance, she was not doing a great job. That being said, I don't think this movie would have been really that much better if she were doing a great job.
It's not. Yeah, exactly. There's more than a single misstep from anything like that. It's kind of an amalgam of messiness. It should have been more one direction than the other, but it seems like it wants to go in like 3 different directions for this movie. It confuses itself, and I felt like by the end of everything, when the lights came up after the credits and everything, I just thought that it was mostly nonsense at a certain point.
And it gets more and more nonsensical the later we get into the movie, which I think means that we should call official spoilers on Argylle. I guess my last thing is, like, don't see this. Don't go see this. I wouldn't not recommend it, but just wait till it's on Apple TV.
I guess stream it for free. Let's leave it at that, pre-spoilers. Stream it for free. I know where I want to jump to,
please,
straight for spoilers, but I don't know if that's truly jumping the gun on literally the whole movie.
Oh, are you going to talk the post-credit scene? Is that what you want to? No, I think we have to. We have to hold back, Seamus.
I know. Okay, all right. Let's talk about one of my biggest problems, and probably one of your biggest problems: the lack of mystery surrounding the fact that Bryce Dallas Howard is, in fact, Agent Argylle.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very clear. I said this a week before this movie came out. It's that it's going to be her, and that her novels are her spy life leaking out into her, whatever. And then they drag that out for the whole movie like we don't know exactly what's happening, and then they don't really have a ton of fun with it when they finally do reveal it in the third act. I felt a little robbed that the only thing where that actually mattered was the music box thing, where we get our Now and Then music box version.
Oh, we didn't even talk about Now and Then.
Yeah.
Mercy. That's maybe my biggest problem with this movie, that she has been canonically Ellie Conway for 5 years, and Sam Rockwell is listening to a Beatles song from November of 2023 and going, this was our song 5 years ago. So either this movie is set in 2028 at the earliest, or Apple is so all consumed with their own product placement that they can't even separate out reality.
Yeah, the timeline is askew in this movie, apparently. Or, when's the last time anybody was ever like, oh, this brand new song, it's our song now? Like, what? Like, and that's at the very earliest that it could be. So it feels strange at that. And the fact that there's 5 different versions. There's there's the music box version, there's the real regular version, there's the sweeping orchestral version, there's the sad version that's in a minor key.
Yeah, I like sad piano version. That's my favorite.
Oh, when she does the very blatant evil spy fake out.
Yes, and shoots him with. She's a perfect marksman, shooting him through the 2-inch hole between his arteries, which is basically like saying, "Don't worry, you'll be fine when I shove this tamping iron through your brain," because like Phineas Gage just got lobotomized when that happened to him.
What do you mean? It's totally medically accurate. So Rockwell can run around and do fist fights with a hole through his chest, like totally normal.
And I mean, like, if the rest of the movie hadn't been so frustrating, I honestly would probably give it a pass for that. But it's just so...
Because we get our really single funny moment of Sam Rockwell jamming like 5 adrenaline needles into himself to be like, all right, okay, I'm ready to go. I did like that.
Yeah, because there are moments in this that do work, but I think that the way the movie is already so egregiously disrespecting the audience's intelligence, to then shoot its romantic lead, Sam Rockwell, in the heart, and you know when that happens, that's not real. And you're like, okay, what clever way is it gonna be not real? But no, it's not even a not clever way. It's just a stupid cop-out way that he's still alive, and they still get to have the beat where you think she's evil or whatever. By the way, there is a good version of being able to do your mundane, normal female character is really a sleeper agent, and it's called Long Kiss Goodnight. They already made that movie with Gina Davis and Sam Jackson. It was written by Shane Black. You know the whole movie, pretty much, that she is, like, it's not like some big midpoint twist. It is something that you're like slowly unraveling with her and going on a journey with her. I want to know if Sam Jackson went to Matthew Vaughn and was like, this is just Long Kiss Goodnight, except you like, you're not doing the twist, right? Like, right.
Oh, God. I can only hope that they were aware enough. And maybe it was like, was it the marketing that made us feel like we were supposed to not understand who Argylle was? Or was it just like,
They tell you in the first 20 seconds she's on screen. They're like, are you a spy? No, I'm not a spy. But maybe I am a spy. That's what a spy would say. Ha 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 ha.
Christ, yeah. And I mean, even when she's doing like the Zoom call on her Apple computer, of course, specifically.
With her iPhone and her iPad and her MacBook and her iMac. And I'm watching Mission Impossible 4 all of a sudden with how many Apple products
Oh my God. They talk about Steve Jobs like 3 times in this movie.
Girl who's gonna be the next Steve Jobs. Ariana DeBose deserves better than whatever's going on in this movie. But you were saying something. You were making a point about her FaceTime call.
Yes, with her mom, and she's like, even then, where she's like, "You've got to finish the next chapter." Like, well, I was like, "Oh, okay, got it." This is a suspicious line of questioning that I should not trust at all right now. I mean, you seem to got with the Bryan Cranston thing.
I was trying to give the movie the benefit of the doubt in a way that I probably shouldn't have been. This will actually probably lead us, unfortunately, into the post-credit scene. This line of thoughts I'm about to embark on.
I might have an extra segue to tack on there.
Oh, great.
I'll let you know.
This movie is full of reveals that there has not been enough clear, or in some cases, any legwork done through the preceding beats of the movie to actually give you clarity about what's going on. So when Bryan Cranston walks in that door as her dad, it's like, is he really her dad? Like, he intentionally put his daughter under as a sleeper agent? Is he posing as her dad? Catherine O'Hara seems to be in on it, but then why is she, like, trying to rush him away from the code book that he's blinking twice like Jeremy Renner to capture the pages of, again, like Mission Impossible 4. That's probably the twist that makes, other than the really obvious she's Agent Argylle twist, that also takes like 4 scenes to fully unravel, and which is, again, just really condescending to the audience.
Yeah,
but
if
then,
anything, it should have been the opposite, where it's like, we know that he is her dad, maybe, kind of like Catherine O'Hara, and then it's revealed later that he is the big bad guy with the fish tank full of crude oil.
Exactly. Oh, so I don't understand what's going on in his office at all.
In his secret lair inside of an oil tanker, you know? You've got to have a window to your oil tanker, I guess?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was like, he's going to start singing "Do You Have a Sweet Tooth" while revealing his big chocolate vat.
By the way, his scene where he kills Rob Delaney with the shotgun, you and I discussed during the movie, if that were in a movie where it were taken seriously and shot well, the performance he's giving is like an Oscar-worthy villain. I want to see Bryan Cranston do that exact shotgun scene in like an Untouchables mob movie.
Growling, evil Cranston is like top tier for sure. In this, he is genuinely intimidating for a while until I feel more exhausted about his involvement than anything.
Yeah. Well, until he starts being her fake dad and doing Ron from 30 Rock.
I mean, he does this, like, trembling thing in the part where Sam Rockwell catches back up with them, where I was like, he unlocked a Malcolm in the Middle box that has not been dusted off in 25 years, and it was crazy to see. And then they do the whole everyone's evil thing, and then I'm just like, the Hal is lost.
Going back to twists that don't make sense.
Oh my god, yeah.
The final moments of the movie before the credits are Ellie Conway doing her... I mean, it's just like the end of Romancing the Stone, like the new book that's based on the adventure that she went on. It's a huge success, and everybody loves it, and it's exactly the same press conference from the beginning of the movie, and everybody's in their exact same seats.
Yeah, they are.
And then we've been seeing Henry Cavill as Agent Argylle in the books throughout the whole movie, including really distractingly during action sequences where he's green screened in over Sam Rockwell, which I really hated.
Yeah, the blinking transitions 100 times a minute in those fight scenes were what I was referencing pre-spoilers and how absolutely distracting that got.
Yeah, absolutely. But then Henry Cavill, who seems to have been slightly de-cavilled in that scene, his face looks a little weird and he looks smaller than Henry Cavill actually is. It's very weird because he's like, I think you might have some questions for me. Okay, Seamus, talk to me about what you think it implies that Agent Argylle, the face of Agent Argylle is on a real man at Ellie Conway's books reading.
Okay. Well, it's hard to think about because you have to imagine that it's someone from Kyle's past.
Yeah.
That, in my head that I've been trying to think about it, it's some sort of... in her blackout couple of years, or maybe previously to her blackout couple of years, she maybe worked with some statesmen, perhaps, if that is any kind of connection. I mean, honestly, it doesn't make sense. So to try to argue my way into how any of this will work, it makes about as much sense as the post-credits scene reveal that somehow the Kingsmen are in... or are adjacent to the universe of Argylle, and I'm not sure how to really get into that more. Is the Kingsmen a fake organization? Are the Kingsmen movies in a different universe than something like Argylle, or did she write into existence the Kingsmen as a secret agent service into her? I don't even know. What do you
Oh yeah, I guess that's an interesting question that I hadn't even, like, there's 14 different layers to this that are all confusing. Because I guess the Argylle books are literally what has happened in the world of the Argylle movie.
Mm-hmm.
Then that means that if she's writing about the Kingsmen, she is presumably doxing the existence of the real life quote-unquote Kingsman organization. And you caught that there was some statesman Easter eggs sprinkled through the movie. So the Argylle, the Argylle in the books, at least, was recruited 20 years ago, as the title card says, as a Kingsman. But does that mean she has any involvement with the Kingsmen? Does that mean that the Henry Cavill from the end of the movie is a Kingsman? the existence of a real Agent Argylle that looks like Agent Argylle then also really muddies the whole she's Agent Argylle thing, because what does it mean that she has taken this guy's visage and put it over herself?
It's so confusing, and I think that we were supposed to be distracted enough by this being a secret tie-in to Kingsman that we weren't supposed to think about it too hard. Because you're right, it implies that because the last thing we see at the end of that post-credit scene is book 1, the movie, implying that in the Argylle first book, she is writing about the Kingsman as if the young Henry Cavill... So, and then also young Henry Cavill's character is wearing Sam Rockwell's shirt in that flashback too, which also just throws in another layer of why is this happening?
Another reveal, quote-unquote, that doesn't make sense is... Sam Rockwell, who she thinks the whole movie is like the inspiration for Argylle, is really the inspiration for John Cena's character. But then we're going back to what you see in the book, Argylle is wearing his Sam Rockwell's shirt, not John Cena. There should have been more John Cena in this movie, to be honest.
Yes, sir.
He's in 3 scenes, and I enjoyed him in all 3 of them. I would way rather just watch the Argylle John Cena
fantasy
in universe. Yeah, I would rather watch that movie than whatever is going on in the rest of this movie, because it fluctuates back and forth between something more akin to an older Matthew Vaughn movie and then a Kingsman movie, but then it's also sometimes this weird Guy Ritchie movie, which they're buddies, so that kind of makes sense.
But the fact that it didn't culminate in having that romantic gunfight be with Henry Cavill and John Cena caressing each other and dancing down a smoky hallway, that's a crime. What the hell are we even doing in this movie?
Which
it seems like they had the idea for and filmed the after credits scene tie-in before they had anything else planned, and that's why it feels so out of place.
I just don't get this movie at all. If it had just been a straightforward, stupid little action movie, even with all of the problems I have with half of every action sequence I liked. I liked the parts of Sam Rockwell fighting people on the train, but I didn't like it constantly intercutting with Henry Cavill. I didn't like the smoke hallway fight at first, but then when it came into them dancing more, doing the Whirlybird callback from the beginning, I was like, okay, I'm a little bit more into this. When the hockey ice skating on crude oil is happening, it's mostly just really dumb, and it's a CGI everything, just whipping around, but then there are a couple of little beats where you're like, oh, that's actually kind of fun. I just don't know. Seamus...
It's a ball of ideas that don't have enough good ones to outweigh the bad ones. Yeah. I guess we're getting sequels to Argylle, whether we want them or not.
It's gonna make $9 million opening weekend or something, so I don't think we are.
But you don't think they're gonna bring in Bryce Dallas Howard as an after credits teaser in a Kingsman sequel somewhere, or?
Well, it makes me wonder is this why we've been waiting so long for whatever the third actual Kingsman is gonna be?
Oh, for sure. Then, yeah, I bet that is actually a very good guess right there. I mean, everything about the mullet Henry Cavill involved, it's just. Not only is it confusing and messy, it's just confusing and messy enough to cram it into another sequel somewhere. As even if it was the B story of a more eggsy focused Kingsman.
Well, the idea of Channing Tatum and Henry Cavill just beating dudes down in a Kingsman movie,
it would be a contest to see how many times, who could reload their arms the most in that movie. That would be incredible.
I would watch that. I would, that's, again, there's so many movies that this movie could have been that I would have been like, that was great.
Oh my God, yeah.
As it stands now, it wasn't, offensive enough for me to hate it. I just didn't get it. I don't know what it was trying to be. I don't know if it knows what it was trying to be. I know that Sam Jackson is doing the most overacting he has ever done in his entire life, and I love him for it.
He's pretty great, I will say.
He's doing Pappy. He's what did I say? What did I lean over to you and say? Welcome to the rural France Kingsman or something when he showed up?
Something like that. I mean, just having a fist fight on the climactic fist fight on the oil barge, and then just continuously cutting back to reaction shots of Sam Jackson reacting to the loading bar in his vineyard. Hilarious. Truly, we were the only people laughing that loud. I'm sure other people were amused, but we were busted up.
I don't think the 6 other people in our theater were really into this movie. Not that we were into it. But
yeah, I was gonna say.
I think that we were maybe the most into it because I think you and I at least laughed sometimes. Like, every time Sam Rockwell did something, we were like, that's pretty good that Sam Rockwell did that.
Yeah, pretty much. We would get brought out of it entirely, and then we get dragged back in by Sam Rockwell or Sam Jackson.
Evil Catherine O'Hara, super fun. I wish they did more with that concept.
Evil British Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah. I enjoyed Bryan Cranston in this. Again, I enjoyed John Cena and Henry Cavill in this. I wish they had more to do. Ariana DeBose has really genuinely nothing to do. But
like, not even metaphorically, she's in like maybe a minute or 2 of screen time total.
Well, she dies in the Argylle book at the very beginning, and then she shows up in literally the end of the 3rd act to Deus Ex Machina them away from the exploding oil tanker.
Ship. And we don't even get to see John Cena and Henry Cavill kiss as they ride into the sunset, which is like, what the hell?
What
like,
was
you
that
set it
whole
up?
movie?
Why not knock it down?
Yeah, exactly. If you're building up to this idea of they are kissing on the boat, but then John Cena and Henry Cavill aren't kissing on the boat, and I don't know whether they were afraid of alienating. I don't know who this movie's for. Also,
yeah, that's the other thing. It's like the 6 other people, like you were saying in our theater, average moviegoers were probably like entertained, but probably fairly bored with this. Like, what is there for anybody, really? It's just action sequences that leave a lot to be desired, and a very messy, written mystery globetrotting script that could have been pretty much entirely scrapped if they rewrote that reveal. But
we're not even harping on smaller things that I have real problems with, because there's so much just fundamentally wrong with this movie.
Yeah. It's hard to zero in on, like, the cat looks weird the whole time, or, you know, there's a hacker guy that doesn't matter, or whatever.
Oh yeah, I forgot about.
There's,
oh
like,
man, they really try to make us care about that hacker guy. I forgot about that.
Like, they spend a very good portion of the first act, like, trying to track down this hacker guy for answers, and then he's just fully been dead the whole time and hasn't mattered to begin with anyway. It's annoying. It's
a bizarre film that I don't really have any intention to revisit, and I'm very curious about what, if anything, will come of its setups for seemingly several different things. A sequel, a Kingsman tie-in, maybe a spin-off that is set both in the Kingsman and Argylle universes. Whatever is going on, I don't know if it will ever see the light of day. But I mean, it was a fine time at the movies at the end of the day.
I said this to you mere seconds before the after credits scene Kingsman reveal. I said, this is the 3rd best Kingsman movie. And then now that I've had time to think about it, it is the 4th best Kingsman movie. I think I put on The Kingsman before I put on Argylle again, and that is an insane thing to say.
Again, it's less problematic than The Kingsman, but I think in most other... Because at least The Kingsman has a twist that interests me.
And that was another thing I said walking out of the theater. If this is somehow a way to make The Kingsman less wacko alt history problematic, where it is somehow a fictionalization within a different spy movie, then maybe that has some legs to go on to fix a few problems. But that is yet to be seen. They've only added more to the fire, I would say.
I agree with you. But why don't we go ahead and move on over to today's pop culture reference, where we break down how literally they could have picked any Beatles song that's not the one that they picked for this movie and been in the clear.
Oh, let's do it. For today's pop culture reference, we're going to be taking a look at the posthumous Beatles releases. In the 10 years following the breakup of the Beatles in 1970, no additional Beatles songs were released. However, after John Lennon's assassination in 1980, there have been a few tracks officially released by the remaining members of the group. As a response to Lennon's death, George Harrison rewrote his song all those years ago to pay tribute to Lennon, and collaborated with the other remaining living band members. Ringo Starr played drums on the track, with Paul and Linda McCartney providing backup vocals.
In 1994, McCartney, Harrison, and Starr began work on the Beatles Anthology Project, which produced a docuseries and CD box set which contained several previously unreleased recordings. Part of this project involved taking demos recorded by John Lennon and having McCartney, Harrison, and Starr add new instrumental and vocal tracks, creating the two new Beatles songs, Free as a Bird and Real Love. A third Lennon demo, Now and Then, was also worked on during this process, but the audio quality was deemed too low to be salvaged with the technology available. However, almost 20 years later, Now and Then would be revisited by McCartney and Starr.
During the production of Peter Jackson's Get Back in 2021, McCartney specifically requested the use of the AI-aided tech that was being used on the archival footage to separate Lennon's vocals from the Now and Then piano track that was previously deemed impossible. With the cleaned-up vocals now fully at the disposal of Starr and McCartney, and Harrison's isolated guitar from the previous work done on the song in 1994, the Beatles released their very last song as a complete band in November of 2023.
And you know what? I think it's a pretty good song. The reason we're doing this for the pop culture reference is because this song is featured very prevalently in this week's main segment, Argylle, and I did lean over to you during the movie and I was like, I do think that of all of the songs that have been released since the death of John Lennon, this is definitely the one that's the most like, yeah, I can hear this being as good as a Beatles song.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoy Now and Then a lot, actually. I think it's very interesting, the kind of the process, the long process that it went through to finally be released. And I really only get a little weirded out when I watched the music video version, because they, like, AI CG add in George and John, which is very strange, but the song itself is actually kind of a jam and very, very Beatlesy.
Yeah, don't care for the music video. I will maybe watch Get Back at some point. Like you, I'm interested in the process of Now and Then, but we'll take the song more than I care about any of that other auxiliary stuff.
Plenty distracting in Argylle, if I'm being honest, the amount that it is featured, but, you know, again, it's an Apple movie, so it makes sense that they're going to use all the tools that they have here.
Mm-hmm. Apple in more than one way.
Oh, yes, very true.
Why don't we go ahead and save the rec center?
Let's do it.
Save the rec center! Now it's time to save the rec center, where we bring you our weekly recommendations. Seamus, what's on your docket?
I was talking about it up top with the passing of Carl Weathers. Predator, the 1987 classic action movie. I truly think, I was thinking about it while I was rewatching it. I think it's maybe the movie I've seen the most in my life. I'm sure Star Wars is up there. I'm sure Indiana Jones is high up there, like the real childhood stuff, but in my adult life, I can go back to Predator literally any day of the week. I could watch it today, and then I could go see you later today and watch it again, probably, because I just think it's one of the perfect entertainment movies. It's not too long. It's not, crazy complicated like the lore of Predator stuff gets in the later parts of the franchise, but it is peak Arnold, peak Carl Weathers, honest to God. He is so jacked and interesting and acting his heart out in this movie. It's phenomenal.
It's got quite the cast, and I mean, obviously, we are McTiernan fellas as well, so I think that's a good rec center, Seamus, and I'm willing to second.
Oh, and I guarantee to you this is maybe like the second or third time I've fallen back on Predator, but I think now more than ever, people need to do themselves a favor. Take some time for yourself, heal a little bit, go watch Predator. But what do you have to save the rec center this week?
Well, we're keeping it Carl over here on Pop Culture Reference, and I am going in kind of the opposite direction and rec centering the unparalleled performance of Carl Weathers in his first of multiple renditions of this character, Toy Story of Terror, the introduction of the Carl Weathers version of Combat Carl. This is the Toy Story Halloween special. You can find it, of course, on Disney+. And it's Jesse-centric. It's a very fun little genre riff with Jesse as the main character, Stephen Tobolowsky as the insidious motel keeper, and Combat Carl, played by Carl Weathers, just doing a tremendous job. I laughed the entire time when this first aired back in like 2013 or 2014, whenever it came out, and I still watch it most Halloweens.
Unless I'm mistaken, unless I'm misremembering this character, Combat Carl is directly based on Carl Weathers' character Dylan in Predator, right?
Absolutely,
like he's got the same getup. And
yeah.
It's I remember you showed me the Toy Story of Terror. I loved it too. I often forget about those great shorts, but this is one that I remember very well. It is, just like you said, a really fun little genre twist on our Toy Story friends, and God bless Carl Weathers. He just does everything 110%. He kills it in that too.
He's the man.
He is the man.
That wraps things up for this week's episode of Pop Culture Reference. If you want to reach the show on social media, on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, you can find us at PCR_podcast. Email us directly at popculturereferencepod@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and engage with us on whatever platform you listen. It really helps the show out. Next week, both in anticipation of the new Donald Glover, Maya Erskine, Mr. and Mrs. Smith television series, and the fact that it is going to be the week of Valentine's Day, we will be covering the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie action romp. I don't know. I've never seen it, Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
It's been long enough that I haven't seen this that it'll pretty much be a brand new movie to me. So it'll be interesting to see what we come to, what our thoughts will be next week.
Argylle does seem kind of the bridge between the Romancing the Stone and the Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Interesting. You're not wrong. Maybe we'll see if we can sniff a little bit of that out when we take a look this week.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out about it next week.
Adios, amigos.